Webinar has started, everybody. Obviously, those of you joining us remotely, thank you for joining us for our very first live stream with an in-person audience of Product Lab. So for those of you who don't know, maybe you're just joining us for Product Lab for the very first time. Turns out this is kind of like an unstream, an unwebinar. It's really a BS session where we give a chance to not only show like what R&D Huntress is working on, it's kind of shared in the most, you say, embarrassing format sometimes where we fail pretty big.
Yeah, it's a peek behind the scenes of like what's happening, and it's not always pretty, it's not always clean.
The best part about it is it's not and purposely not meant to be a marketing session. This isn't some like sales engineering trying to sell you. It is really saying this is the hard problems, and it's a bi-directional conversation. So some of you who have been longtime members here, I'm not going to be able to interact as heavy in chat. I usually have like the Minority Report, screen swiping, everything else going. But for today, Chris is going to be manning chat, and the whole goal is to have just a typical Product Lab format, ridiculous, BS, etc. What's exciting though is the people that are actually joining me here in the audience, and the camera will occasionally pan and show you what that looks like, are the almost 600 people that make all these product side of the house actually happen, whether it's come to life in R&D, actually setting up the infrastructure, of course, building out the user experience, being able to actually educate you all the way down to making sure you all know what we're doing. So if we have a cameraman that can pan, this is probably a good time to show what it looks like for everybody who actually makes Product Lab happen when Chris and I just BS behind our webcams wherever we are that day. So let's make some of that happen real quick. And with that said, I'm going to jump in while we were kind of working through. As I mentioned, it's Product Lab Live, and for the July episode, it's kind of action-packed. We're going to keep with our similar format, just like a Breaking Bad session. We're going to show you what shadiness we're cooking up. But what's exciting about that is it's not just about what we're cooking up out of the lab. Oftentimes we dive into maybe new problems, or maybe something that we're cooking up is not just worth a quick like flash in the pan, hey, we released this new technology. And that's a good example of like for our very first time in Product Lab history, we're having a back-to-back session. So last month it was cat and mouse, talking about maybe hackers getting past, like identity threats past VPNs. Turns out shit kind of got real in the last month. Keeping it going, we're going to give you some behind the scenes. Huntress really believes in an AI-assisted SOC. We love the power of our human experts, but it's all about how can we deliver more at that same level of value. And so what's really neat, we'll dive in and kind of show you some fail whales, some pretty good early signs. Chris, I know you're going to do a little bit of demoing, right? You're going to show us some of the, is it simulations that's happening in SAT?
Yeah, SAT released a new simulation. It really showing you how phishing emails get created, how people look at them, how they figure out what should be in there, how they drive that urgency, and both trick you into clicking on something and taking some action that they want you to take. So we'll dive into that. The new simulation is pretty cool, and if you're a SAT customer, it should be available for you.
Love it. Last but not least, we're going to try to hope to put to rest the question of, hey, Huntress, are you actually building an antivirus or not? I know that doesn't sound like a typical Product Lab type question, but it turns out this is one of our most common questions we get. Hoping to be able to share behind the scenes of, while hint, we probably will not or never build an antivirus. Never doesn't always mean never. So I'll show you what we are going to build in the future. With that said, I'm also going to end with prize time. So if you're joining us being interactive, still light us up in chat, even though I won't be able to kind of roast you like I normally do.
Yeah.
Make sure, Chris, you're bubbling some of these up for me, okay?
Yeah, no, I mean, we had a good one already. So somebody asked, hey, if everybody's in the room here in Hollywood, Florida, who's watching the SOC?
Oh, we're not. We're just not.
We put it on pause. It's cool. Don't worry.
We asked the hackers, though, too. The threat actors were like, we got you. Take your hour. You do your
we
thing.
agreed on a vacation for the same time frame. So that's cool. No, really, we have like actually one floor down from where we're sitting right now. There's a whole room of SOC analysts who are taking shifts to go 24 hours a day to make sure that all of our partners continue to be protected, even while we're here having a good time. So give it up for them for sure.
Woo. All right. I know we've got roasted on Product Lab for this one forever. It's, I think, only second to dark mode. For those of you who don't know, dark mode is the single biggest thing that we get threatened on. Audit logs, we've always had them. We've always recorded this stuff in the back end, but it's actually available. Part of the long-term strategy was, hey, as we get SIM, a system meant for storing logs and allowing that to be searchable, was to be able to expose that to you. So obviously I'm super proud to announce, hey team, we've got searchable audit logs available. And so
super awesome.
Pretty pumped on that. And it's mainly focused, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, we'll continue to expose more and more Huntress behaviors, but it's like, hey, somebody approved that remediation recommendation and it shouldn't have been approved, or hey, somebody actually uninstalled that, endpoint, or maybe deleted an integration. So that should help you there.
Yeah.
I'm pretty pumped about this one. With that said, you can search it. Not meant to, you probably have 1,000 other things, but if you want to jump into the typical, ESQL type queries, you can dive in. Chris, I know that SIM has a lot more going on. This has been your baby forever. You kind of want to walk through, I threw together like the world's simplest kind of like examples of API. I know we'll touch SIM a little bit later on, but when we get to that, do you mind taking that sucker?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. How about this one? I don't really know. I saw the other day we're putting signals in the API. I wasn't 100% sure what this meant. So you want to school me?
Yeah. So, we've had an API for a while and we've added stuff to it and we continue to improve it. One of the things that folks asked was, hey, can I see not only just the incidents, but actually all the signals, the things that you're looking at to determine was this malicious or was this not? So we added in signals into the API. There's documentation out there. You can query them. There's a bunch of fields. You can filter them. So if that is something that interests you and you want to take that on, it's there now. So you can jump in and play around with it.
I know we're going to get lit up in chat, but this is another example of exposing read capability. One of the things we've heard you loud and clear is your need for write capability, whether that's just, hey, I'd like to be able to manage users at scale. Maybe I need to be able to automate some of my own decisions. Obviously, more and more automation, Roost coming online, or other forms of RPA. And of course, agentic everything, right? So we're well aware, listening to you loud and clear, and kind of trying to make sure that we're prepared, not just for maybe yesterday's level of write-based APIs, but how do we handle kind of the future of where things need to go, especially in the world, and maybe it's not humans calling our automation, but maybe it does have some success of agentic calling.
Yeah, and trying to figure out where the right balance of that is like how much do we expose and what could go wrong if per se somebody got access to that API key, right? A lot of people have asked us, hey, can you expose the ability for us to isolate all of our endpoints via the API? And that one is a little bit scary for us because what if an attacker got access to that, isolated all your endpoints, now you're down, right? Like that's a little bit worrying.
I don't know. You tell the investors that, they'll have us marketed as like ransomware as a service. It'll be an upsell we can actually sell here at Huntress.
That's a separate package.
Oh gosh, let's not go there. We have heard loud and clear, especially those of you moving up market, whether you're one of our MSP partners or you're actually like an in-house IT department. We heard you. You want ServiceNow. The teams work their backside off. So congrats, it's available. We can send incidents your way. And even though my screenshots don't fully show it, it actually moves over and maps to your priority level. So pretty slick integration. I just would ask the audience, like as you're seeing, for instance, maybe quirks or anything that happens when you're shipped the first version of stuff, just again, light us up in feedback.huntress.com. That's one of the best ways for our PMs to be able to understand, like, did we miss or did we stumble? Or maybe you have an idea we just haven't considered. So big one there. And I'm going to move a little faster because we've got a lot, and today's episode is kind of action-packed. But I want to share with you, the EDR team, last month, we kind of warned that, hey, we're doing a lot when it comes to adding new technology that might kind of fly below like most marketing, but for everybody who's so technical on Product Lab, turns out our lateral movement tech is working really freaking well. And we've seen kind of 3 or 4 major cases and flavors of like lateral movement that we're just much better at finding. So the first one, just taking a look and finding, hey, shady hacker host able to not only be able to remotely execute, but we're seeing a lot of that where RDP is generally more convenient. Sometimes it's even threat actor skill where they'd rather enable RDP, turn it on via PSExec or some remote query, and then of course at that point they then start their RDP login. So as much as we wish remote desktop was dead, lateral movement is finding sometimes just threat actors opening up and making this more accessible. Also finding a lot more incidents when it comes to like good old-fashioned brute force. And notice some of this tradecraft is still using the same tools. Good old PSExec we found over and over. However, if you notice, they're setting up for, this is going to be the beginning of probably ransomware, right? We see some maybe creation of that, some of the shadow copies that could be backing up data. Sometimes they do that to be able to steal like SAM data. Maybe that's the data they're going to log in for like, your NTLM hashes, stuff along those lines. But obviously you can imagine from some of this lateral movement, it becomes great. I've got creds. It's helping me do more lateral movement. How do I next do kind of the more traditional PSExec style remote execution? And the last one's a little bit more. Notice this is actually using DCOM and MMC to be able to get its execution. Same type of remote access, or sorry, lateral movement, but hope that, doubles down that like this isn't just a cute little side feature. And if anybody's like, you're watching, you want to take a screenshot, down there in the bottom left-hand corner, Chris and I threw a link to the blog. It's fairly technical. It's walking through how this works. So in case like you're interested, probably not something you'll market, right? You won't go tell your CISO, you won't go tell your clients how this works, but it's just part of that like commitment to staying ahead of where things are going. And Chris, I also had one more. This is again, one of those subtle things where antivirus, right? It does its job. And if you're having us manage Defender, whether that's the free version or you have like premium licensing for Defender for Business or Defender for Endpoint, it turns out antivirus is noisy as shit, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so some of the simple things, we talked to you guys about like how our platform team has to work with our actual product teams to do more like correlation. Yo, I've seen 3, 4, 5 of these low, priority, kind of incidents. And the team has actually been able to take these low quality signals. And sometimes when you have enough of them in the frequency within a certain amount of duration, elevate them into maybe a medium or high status that helps our SOC kind of look at the stuff that matters, while also being able to kind of better handle, there is technically low signal and high signal. And so you can imagine for prioritization, this is a really big internal optimization. So excited for that. Obviously, hats off to the team. Chris, is there anything, I know you've been knee deep, you're running Nix right now for this. You want to talk anything about the Linux side? Because I know this has been something that's been on most folks' mind.
Yeah. So we've been talking about Linux for years, right? And the conversation was always about like, okay, how much effort are we going to have to put in, and how many people really need it? And we had the same conversation with Mac, right? For a long time, we were Windows only.
Yep.
And so I think we finally got to enough market demand for Linux that we started working on it. And we've kind of teased that a little bit before, but we've actually got Linux deployed now. There are 50 plus Linux agents deployed in the wild. They're sending us telemetry. If you are someone who wants to add Linux to your Huntress
is this the moment we piss off our support team? You just reach out to support@huntress.com and they'll magically know what we're talking about on product.
He said it, not me. Support came for me last time.
So they did come for you, but if you're watching, whether it's your account manager or the Huntress support team, we want to get you into this beta. So if you have some of these, whether it's the onesie, twosie, maybe you have a web app, we're ready to start more of this kind of private side of the beta. Not quite public, but please light us up. What's chat looking like? I'm feeling like ADHD, not being able to like see everything that's going on.
No, I mean, a lot of people asking about stuff. There were some questions about like the ServiceNow integration, some of those things. But overall good.
Next, Kate. No, I don't think we have Kubernetes on the, running it there. To be honest, we've heard some horror stories of folks who've tried to run within both containers and clusters. So I don't think we have any Kubernetes on the agenda. Let's figure out traditional, Nix platforms first.
Yeah.
Don't
one step at a time, I think, for sure.
Gotcha. I'm curious from chat, just because I'm having that withdrawals of not being able to have the interactive, like people lighting me up. How much actual Linux do you all see? I mean, for us, it's mainly been somebody that's like, I don't want to manage an extra vendor, and no offense, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't want to deal with like, here's my separate Linux only vendor. So it makes sense Huntress has to add it. Yeah. I'm curious.
Sure.
Gosh.
Kyle's got to do a crypt walk.
I can. That's about right. This seems normal.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey.
So some of the other things that we did, I wanted to highlight, and this came up as one of the wins that we've had some of these what we call vaccines in the Huntress agent for a while, where we've identified ways to prevent and block things like ransomware, and Acura ransomware is one of those. And we had a case recently where we saw the attacker try to run Acura ransomware several times, and we blocked it every time. And then we isolated the host and everything was good. So like wins like that are just, they're just awesome.
I wish I could see like the rage side on the other side of the keyboard where they're like, what the fuck,
Oh, I'm sure, dude. They're probably just like up arrow enter and they're like, why is this not working? This always works. I don't get it.
Gosh, with that said, I do hope that we kind of double down more, maybe future episodes of Product Lab, talk more about vaccines, because we still have other groups that kind of sometimes can kick the crap out of us. I've seen that, what is it, killing?
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce that.
Yeah, who knows? But I've seen them light some of our endpoints up at time to time. So there's more work to be done. That's why this is the Product Lab.
Yep.
But again, more stuff brewing there on the EDR side. Chris, you want to fly through this? Because we get so much good stuff today, and I see where time's going.
So we talked about the audit logging stuff is a new data source for SIM. We added Cisco ASA firewalls if you are interested in that. And we've talked about it a little bit before, Sentinel-1 incident activity, but that's available now. So if you're a Sentinel-1 user as well to Huntress, we'll bring in your activity and then our SOC can look at it and we'll kind of give you a second set of eyes. So we are also working on doing the similar for CrowdStrike. So if you are a CrowdStrike user, you're interested in that, give us a call, let us know.
With that said, this is the appropriate time to differentiate. If you are running something like Sentinel-1, hit up your account manager. Support at the end of the day is just going to route you there anyway. So
yeah,
pretty good advice. You okay? I'm going to just run through this because we've got some craziness to happen. This was, as I mentioned in the beginning of our product lab, I try not to repeat. It bores the hell out of me. And so if you recall from June month, but maybe some of you are brand new, I just wanted to give you a quick recap. What we saw back in 2020 is, well, people started implementing conditional access on their SaaS apps. In this case, I'm using Microsoft 365, but all kinds of different apps usually have this flavor. And the idea is to say, hey, if this user's coming in from this geo or at this time, or maybe doing certain behaviors, let's either allow or block access. Nothing really special to it. Threat actors said, I'll hold my beer. And what they decided to do is they didn't care where your conditional access came from. Many times we actually see automation that spins up and they just try VPNing into your local, whatever your maybe IP space that matches where your company's registered to. So the point that I'm saying is conditional access was kind of very quickly thwarted when it was just geofencing. And so our cat, right, at Huntress got a quick upgrade, if you remember that. And we ended up adding a lot of this kind of conditional access extended, right? This is the ability to be able to add more all the way, not just with geolocation. Maybe you don't have the licensing for conditional access. So we can not only do that, we can actually block a lot of these VPNs. And of course, the threat actors did what threat actors do best. They pivoted again, cat and mouse. Hence, we talked about it last month. They started moving to those like older school kind of colos, right? Those are the data centers that you can rent like rack space. You just spin up your own, bring your own VPN and voila. It's no longer on some of the most common VPNs that we see, right? And it's a good way for them to try to get around what we call, right, the initial access side of the house, right? Or unwanted access. And let's be real, it's all about layers, but we'd ideally like to find stuff well before it creates that inbox rule that's like used for BEC, right? Yeah. Business email compromise, or well before it actually shit hits the fan and people are trying to like maybe enroll their own MFA devices. That gets nasty. And so the unexpected happened. When I say unexpected and unthinkable, turns out we were digging into a threat actor getting around and actively getting around, sometimes in even some of our partners and clients, meaning like we were missing, some of the unwanted access on these data centers. And we were digging into this pseudo shady Canadian one, right? And what's interesting about this data center is most of the traffic we saw, it was kind of sus, but not always. And when I say the unthinkable happened, I mean a threat actor who is actively giving us a little bit of hell, for some reason decided to start a Huntress trial and put the agent on their actual infrastructure that they're conducting operations from.
You say infrastructure, it was just their laptop.
Yeah, laptop, I think it was a server, but either way, there was some of their actual box, and that's like extreme levels of fuck around and find out. Like I don't know what they were doing. I personally wouldn't run my own shady infrastructure and put the Huntress agent. So we wanted to show you what we learned when they accidentally unleashed our SOC on this like sus agent, because right, it's not just, hey, an endpoint agent, there's a whole team behind it. So doing part of what we typically do, we look for agent abuse. Sometimes it's a competitor doing something sus. I don't recall a case that we've ever had a threat actor, especially a threat actor, install us on anything other than a VM.
Yeah.
And we did what we do best, which is within our privacy policy, collected the relevant data, which probably the most fun version of this was their browser history. And the reason we want to share this with you is last month we told you hackers are trying to actively get around kind of this VPN detection we've written. And now we can show you firsthand from the data lifted straight from a threat actor. So like, give it a second to just think about like how ridiculous and giddy we were as a team. And so as we start looking at the search history, it was already like ridiculous telling. What's chat doing? Are they dying over here?
They like the browser history forensics for sure. And they didn't realize this wasn't kid-friendly language.
Oh, this is Huntress. WebRoot will help you for kid-friendly. Gosh.
Yes.
Sorry. With that said, take a look at some of this, like the search history of like even the earliest browser history. They're trying to dump Chrome cookies. Notice further below here, you can actually see them trying to get around some of the application level encryption, Chromium-based browsers. So it's not just Chrome, but also Edge and the many others that are based on it. They'll now like won't allow you to dump a session token if you're not more or less running as the Chrome process. And so what did hackers figure out? Well, you can turn on this remote debugging feature in Chrome and interact on behalf of Chrome and still dump this stuff. So you can actually see they're using this and searching how to bypass Office MFA. Like this is what your threat actor looks like.
Yep. I mean, this is the back and forth, right? This is us saying, hey, attackers are doing this. We need to figure out how to identify when they're coming in through a VPN. And then saying, okay, well, this is clearly not working. We need to find the next thing. Like, how do we get around that? What are they not identifying, right? They go to VPSs, then they're looking at how do I get the cookies if I can't get them in the regular way? It's always this back and forth in security. And so whoever you're using, whatever vendor it is, they need to be up on top of this and they need to be constantly evolving. Otherwise, you're going to continue to miss stuff.
Talking about evolving, Chris, I got some good ones. So we got confirmation. They are definitely, absolutely, undeniably trying to get around that VPN problem I mentioned earlier, just last month. And so one of the softwares we discovered they're using is Luna Proxy. And look how it markets itself. 200 million plus residential IPs across 195 different countries, states, city, and geo.
Where do you think they got all those IPs?
Oh, I'm sure they're all legit, 100%.
No,
they're definitely
probably,
not pwned like Comcast devices or
no.
you know, guaranteed. This is, where do you get 200 million IPs from? These are definitely shady bots, everything else.
Yeah.
And what's nice is notice they all have API driven. And in the world of automation, we kind of teased a little bit about agentic. This threat actor is not to be left behind. And so it wasn't just this, by the way, Luna Proxy was one of the things they were running. We also saw them using the NST browser capability. This is another one. Notice proxy rotation, the ability to solve CAPTCHAs, a lot of automated type behaviors. And by the way, they'll handle different bot detections. So this is like, it's crazy, some of this dual use technology. And we have real proof that threat actors aren't just theoretically doing this because we think they're doing it. Remember, we are on their computer that they're actually doing these operations from. And it keeps going, right? We see them actually using quite a bit of automation. If you're not familiar with Make, Make.com is essentially a service, and you notice the way they describe it. They call it both automation software, workflow software, and not to be left without the hype, AI software. So the idea of being able to combine all these things together. And they don't only want to be able to send these phishing emails through SendGrid, they also want to make sure they can integrate that when they copy and steal these cookies, they not only phish you, they get the results back, they're indexing them, storing them correctly, and even a step further, notice the very last one they have for you. Their voltage, they even got good marketing, right? At least it's not lame. Like,
I mean, if this doesn't show you that like attackers are becoming more sophisticated and taking it serious, like as a business, as something that they do, like, I don't know what else will.
That's what it means. Like, if you think about on the vendor side, this is that cat and mouse. I mean, heck, we have an episode today, like we're going to cover what we're doing on AI. This is quite literally more workflow automation, but also leveraging some of the AI side of this tool chain to be able to truly allow this one or few people in this threat actor group to have a much bigger, impact. So pretty wild to see it in real life. This is how it's going down. And so when we tell you that Huntress is working on some of these problems, we mean it. R&D is entering like kind of experimental stage. So if you are an ITDR user, over the next week, we're going to start moving into more of a private experimental. We're going to start working with our SOC with these new signals. Sometimes we roll out data, and especially when it's across billions of identities, stuff blows up in real life. So you're not going to see this today. You're probably not going to see it tomorrow, but probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, this stuff that's behind the scenes is going to start making your way to your inbox. And sometimes you're probably going to get indicators that you're like, what can I do? If it's just a local IP that is within 10 miles from you because they claim to have access to 200 million or so IPs, what can you realistically do? So just want to make sure everybody knows, like this identity problem is nowhere close to solved. This reminds me, at least, this feels like the end point in like circa 2005. It is absolutely quick trade craft back and forth.
Yeah.
Feeling that way to you too?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's advancing pretty quickly, and like, I don't know where it will end. That's the crazy thing, is like, where should we be going? We always try to skate to where the puck is, not where where, where it's going to be, not where it is. And I have no idea where it's going to go. So it makes it very hard to get there.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know if you saw, Rich, people are saying you're not allowed to sleep
Yeah, no
during
sleep,
Summit. Get
no
to
sleep.
work, Rich, wherever you are. Chop, chop. They want this R&D out there.
Oh,
so.
somebody asked about ITDR for G Suite.
Oh, snap. So we talked about this previously, but in case you're not aware, we got pretty decent telemetry from Microsoft 365. I don't want to go too deep because we're going to run out of time for this episode. But sometimes Google Workspace is like, yo, I'm going to take 2 hours, Huntress, to get you the data. That's not a good look for us when we're reporting every incident 2 hours late. So we are working with corporate to be able to move this a little bit further. And Google has, by the way, preliminary agreed at their timeline, they're going to help fix this problem. So we're having direct level, conversations, leadership to leadership, moving this forward. With that said, you all lit me up on the last product lab when I said we're not going to release this because we think that until it's fixed, it's going to make Huntress look bad and it's going to let you down. And you all told me in the nicest / meanest ways, Kyle, I'm going to go buy some other product because I have to do something.
Yeah.
We are looking to rapidly ramp up the amount of Google Workspace alpha partners. And we're looking at even considering, do we just offer this for the time being until maybe Google updates the API? Do we just allow people to use this for free? It does show value. It does find inbox rules. It does find forwarding like rules, a little bit different than Microsoft 365, but some stuff like doesn't even have all the telemetry to be able to look at some of this session token theft. So if you're there, if you want to, what is the right way? I know Rich said, reach out to Rich.
Yeah.
Is it reach out to your account manager? I'm not allowed to say reach out to support. What is it? I heard reach out to your account manager or Rich directly on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Right. Rip Rich's LinkedIn. Sorry.
Okay, what are we doing on time? I feel like we are well into it. We got to get going. We started what, 15 mark?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to say threat actors aren't the only one experimenting with AI. We are, I'd say AI realistic. Getting a little bit
AI curious.
Oh, I like where you went there. I love what you did there. And I'll tell you that our journey has started pretty stinking broad. And the whole part, by the way, of showing this in Product Lab is you all are at home are also experimenting. I'm talking to a lot of partners who some of you are playing with more on the automated pen testing side of the house. Some folks are just trying to glue different systems together. I want to show you what it looks like, the fail whales, the embarrassing, some of the early successes as well of us playing with both, I'd say it's predominantly MCP based. So that's the idea of standing up both client and server, abstracting maybe complex interfaces away and using the LLM for a little bit of the reasoning, plus a lot of the summary analysis and maybe some of the automated decisions. So if you notice, when I say we started really broad, some of our first projects were like, look, we have junior analysts. Not everybody at Huntress comes in with 20 some years of experience wrecking hackers, right? We have to be able to create a pipeline. Folks that move from product support, or even sometimes the people returning your calls when you ask for help, move into support, that then move into the SOC support, move into a security analyst position, into a researcher. Maybe they later become product people. So we have our own different tiers of expertise. And the reason that we're sharing that is we're asking the big question with AI. How do we enable some of these more junior folks to be able to have not just a co-pilot, but I would call it like, maybe sometimes a guide, right?
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it's a second opinion. Both opinions might be wrong, by the way, AI and the actual analyst. But the idea of how do we add some belt and suspenders that more importantly enable more junior folks to be able to sometimes have just a second check ride or a second opinion on how things are going. And so our first attempt at this was actually very much in regards to standardizing our investigation. Now that we have so much telemetry, so many different products, I totally understand why our SOC went down this route of just like, oh gosh, can we try to get these in order? Turns out AI is very broad. It doesn't necessarily take the same path depending on what LLM, how you have it configured. And by the way, you have to make sure that for us on our end, since we're the ones paying the actual bill to these AI providers, whether we're training the model on our own type of LLM capabilities, we really have to be careful that as it's creating these token windows, right? Or the idea of like how much compute maybe we're throwing at this problem, it can get expensive where maybe the juice of having some sort of recommendation of every step isn't actually worth the squeeze. So that's my long way of telling you, not only are we experimenting at Huntress at how many things we can use AI for, we're being realistic so you guys don't end up like as our partners and customers bearing the exorbitant cost of some of this AI back end and making sure it's truly like keeping us competitive helping our humans do more so we can unlock like those brilliant human brains on stuff that like AI doesn't have a chance to do. That's the whole idea behind AI assisted SOC. So I want to share with you, some of this font gets small, but I'll give you the high level. So like a very good example of where some of the experimentation did. I think, Chris, your very first attempt was just like, look, we have a very complex backend at Huntress, right?
Yeah.
All kinds of different databases, different products, different segmentation, different APIs. It's complex.
Yep.
And so how do we expose to our SOC a simple interface that might allow them to query more technical info? And so a great example of this, you can actually see at some of our test system. We just asked the question of like, hey, when was this host, this endpoint first seen? And if you watch some of the testing, and you'll notice by the timestamps on this, this is June 30th. So when I'm telling you this is new, this is just stuff quite literally from our last product lab, where the team was experimenting and noticed the AI is doing its best. And it's like, hey, I think I need to get a signal ID. And once I get that signal ID, I need to look up the associated agent. And you see it comes through here and it says, now let me see if I can get when this host was first seen. And it does a pretty good job. Like that's not bad that without hardcore training and instruction, this automated service has understood some of our back end. It's called our APIs without DOSing ourselves or taking us down or something along those lines.
Yep.
And although it was able to tell it when it was first seen, when we asked the next question of like, yo, is this agent, this endpoint, is it a workstation or server? Notice it kind of falls over on itself. And even though it's able to derive that this is a Windows 8 Pro system, any junior IT system administrator knows that Windows 8 is going to be a workstation variant and not the server variant. And so notice it even says, hey, even though you don't have something that explicitly categorizes it, it can't even at this point, the way that we have it configured, it's not doing much inference. So I'll tell you, it doesn't always work. So I'm curious just from the chat, how much time, what are you guys playing with? Are we seeing anybody that's also doing this?
No, nobody said they were doing it. Somebody did suggest we call this Dr. Curious or Dr. Suck Curious.
Oh gosh, this is why we're not allowed to.
There's that.
So part of being curious is finding, sometimes you find diamonds in the rough though. And a good example of this is we have demonstrated we can solve actual problems. So here's an example of some of that Copilot messaging. You can see we've actually have some of the token sizes limited. You can see some of the temperature or maybe how much inference we're asking sometimes it to do. We're kind of saying it like, look, we want it to look like this, predictable. Please answer all of our questions. And you'll notice in some cases, we're actually asking like, oh, can you give me a little bit more? I'll check the status of this if it's been reported. And it's actually pulling back information for our SOC to be able to kind of query on demand. So when we see an incident, for instance, maybe when the dateline is starting over in Australia, New Zealand, it's sometimes really nice that by the time the things that we learn, only a handful of hours later in UK, Ireland, EMEA, obviously as we get to Canada and US, that these new time zones, our SOC needs to be able to learn from the lessons of folks who hit Friday night at 5 p.m. first. So this is a good example of how it's actually being leveraged. And I'll tell you, some of the biggest wins we've actually had are just understanding what is it good at and what maybe because of our own fault is it not as good at. So I don't know if you saw this, Chris, but this is some of the first analysis the team did on PowerShell commands, just trying to analyze.
Yeah.
And I mean, this really gets down in the weeds. And so it's a good example of sometimes it's our fault, not actually tuning the prompts on how we're going to augment this AI assisted SOC. And I'll tell you, like that is really in depth. And in some cases, I'll tell you, we've looked at AI and even started asking ourselves the question, does this actually make our SOC worse? What I mean like that is, does this take away some of our SOC's critical thinking to actually get the job done? Or should they come out the door and know what this answer is? Like you should know, even as a junior SOC analyst, like when you're seeing window hidden, bypassing the execution policy, that's not advanced tradecraft.
Right.
But you should have a good idea of like, ooh, someone's probably trying to masquerade or just not prompt an end user. And then when you see it using the invoke expression, it's probably doing some downloading here. It's doing some downloading. That's stuff that we would kind of expect our SOC to have. So notice that like how you leverage AI and how we're leveraging in here is not just about cost. Sometimes our own prompting is sucked. Have you seen other examples?
Yeah, I mean, in a similar vein, right? I've heard people talk about like what happens if you stop doing some of these things, whether it's, in the SOC, just taking the output of whatever AI says, or engineers just taking the output of, oh, write this code for me and it does it. At some point you start to lose that that skill, like because you're not using it, you're starting to lose it. You're not learning from it. all of that kind of stuff. So there has to be that right balance there where we still want SOC analysts to learn new things, be able to see the new tradecraft and understand it, but how do we also make them, more beneficial in the meantime? So
yeah, and let's be real, nobody writes assembly anymore straight to the processors.
Right.
We have abstracted languages. So we do see this as an inevitable. Some of these things that are current SOC skills probably won't be the SOC skills of the future. But I hope that gives you guys like some pretty good inside scoop. And I'll tell you, some of the places that we're having kind of initial success, this isn't just in the lab. You all, excuse me, you all at home are actually getting some limited benefit from this right now, where even in cases, notice I had to redact the heck out of this slide before we anybody of you saw me like fretting backstage? That was me trying to redact slides at the last 1 minute here. But the part I want to share is even little things that we've discovered is how to get very narrow. So when we think we have something malicious or we have a signal, how do we give analysis of maybe something much more complex? So for the system admins out there that have lived on any of endpoint side, you know that you have parent processes and often you have a dozen or so child processes, right? Sometimes it could even be grandparent, parent, child. And what we've discovered is for our more junior analysts, it appears some of the value of what we can do is not only say, hey, let me help you understand what was happening in that process chain as a second kind of guess. But what's really neat about this is we've even started boxing it. Notice you'll see here of saying, hey, give us for the last 3 hours, the events have been here. Give me a summary. And I've seen some beautiful examples. Like we saw some with a dental clinic the other day. Not everybody in the SOC knows what Dentrix is. For those of you at home that have the fortune/disfortune of supporting a dentist's office, not only are they stingy, they also have the craziest apps that open the craziest PDFs, and half of them look like malware anyways. So this is a good example of how we're trying to cut down what it takes to be able to help make sure that our costs stay predictable for you, and you're able to kind of use your budget for any of the other, new crazy tradecraft like ITDR. So I see people laughing. I think I hit some close points with the dental software.
I'm sure people have dealt with it before. William was saying hey, it would be great if the AI could say, hey, my confidence on this answer is low. Here's my best guess. Maybe one of the biggest challenges with AI is it's always extremely confident.
Oh, I mean, I won't lie. I'm pretty sure it's like my best, hype man, hype woman. Like my AI is telling me everything I want to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that if there was a better confidence dial of yo, act as a slightly sketchy, your job is on the line, but my AI for sure is let's fucking go.
Yeah, but I mean, it definitely hypes you up, right? Because even when you're when you tell it it's wrong, it's yeah, you're right, I was way wrong. It's I know.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was yo, dog, end a shift. I think you should let AI take this one. But all right, I think we've done enough of showing behind the scenes. I hope that was interesting for you all. I noticed Q&A is quiet today. That's maybe something that we're usually a little bit more rowdy when we're interacting.
Oh, there is one in Q&A.
What do we got over here?
Will the SIM ever allow sysmon logs to be ingested? I think possibly. So we've talked about this. The biggest challenge with sysmon logs is that there are a lot of them. They are very, very detailed. They can be beneficial in a lot of ways, but how do we find that trade-off between how much do you want to pay for SIM and how much data do you want to have, right? And we've always looked at it from the standpoint of hey, let's focus on the data that brings you value so that you're paying for what is giving you value. So we've talked about maybe making a separate data source for SIM where you can have the opportunity to turn on sysmon, maybe for a couple of hosts or all your hosts or whatever, as long as you're willing to pay for it, right? And so finding that balance for how do we make it available to some people but not force everybody to pay for it is the part that we're still trying to figure out.
Yep, love it. All right, Chris, in the, kind of just considering keeping another topic, I think it's time to move to the next segment.
Yes.
The team at Security Awareness Training has just dropped 3 biggies, right? Some functionality. In addition to some functionality, they got a new episode. And in addition to a new episode, we've got a simulation. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'll show you the slides. Do you want to, my voice is already getting froggy. I'm doing too much talking here. Do you mind, maybe if when it comes to the demo, either I'll click through or maybe we'll switch chairs, something along those lines?
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
I'll just talk through it.
All right, here we go. I'm going to get you into some demo tape. So for those of you using security awareness training or just curious what we're doing, the one thing we've learned over and over is if you're not actually teaching the end users tradecraft, using memorable kind of both memes, memorable moments, things that call out to pop culture, et cetera, Behavioral science suggests they're not actually going to retain it. And if they're not retaining it, you're not going to change the behavior and your end users are still going to get wrecked. What's exciting about this is we're going to show you a little bit of demo tape, both some new episode. You want to talk about this? Because this is like spear phishing 2.0, right?
Yeah. This is the second version of spear phishing. It goes a little bit deeper to give you some better understanding of like how are attackers doing it. And like you said, like that's really what we're trying to help you learn is like learn the tradecraft. And that was from the beginning, really the reasoning behind Huntress is we knew how to get in, how to maintain persistence as an attacker. And we said, now that we know this, how can we use that on the defensive side? So taking that same idea and now giving it to the end users of saying, hey, here's what a phishing email would look like. Here's how you would craft it. Now that you know that, you can understand how to spot it. And so there's a whole episode there. You can go through it. It walks you through a bunch of stuff. It'll show you kind of how it's working. There's some nice videos. There's also questions. If you're new to SAT, all of our episodes have these questions. They're fairly simple, but they're there to make sure that the user is like actually paying attention and didn't click the button and walk away. So that's all good.
And Chris and I actually did the training last night, and this episode is freaking ridiculous. So the idea behind it is it's kind of a employee, maybe like more junior, not quite script kiddie, that's wanting to join a shady hacking group called the All Seeing Three.
Yeah.
So a little bit ridiculous, a little bit of insider threat mixed with some, different behaviors. And if you notice, you start this episode with like, hey, what's Jaya doing? And it turns out she's trying to be able to like not ask him to help. She wants to jump on board.
Yeah.
It just so happened, turns out that the All-Seeing Three is a bunch of hacking grandmas. And I'll tell you, that's the threat actor that I'm actually most worried about. Not AI, it's the All-Seeing Three.
Yeah.
So when we say this memorable episode here, it's not just the great content, the stuff that will truly stick out in your least technical. I don't care if they're blue collar working, maybe they're a mechanic that works at a, Ford dealership in the back. Those same folks are some of the ones that jump on the laptop and go to some of the sketchiest website under the sun.
Yeah.
This type of stuff is truly memorable to the audience. So Chris, I'm curious, do you want for like the demo wise, if I jump into that sucker, do you want to take over or do you want to, how do we want to go through this? Because I actually think it's important to maybe show a little bit of the demo, what's going on.
Yeah. If you want to start it, then I can just kind of talk through some of it.
All right, let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and start. So what we've done here is we've logged into Curricula.
When you take the episode, when you get to the end, then you get to actually go into the simulation where you get to kind of apply all the skills you just learned. So this is that simulation. So if you want to hit continue there. So basically it starts out, sets up the scenario of like, hey, you're being recruited by these people. You gotta do some stuff. And it's going to walk you through like, okay, to get recruited, you have to phish this person and you have to figure out like, what is the phishing email going to look like? So as you step through some of these, you can click through a few of these, it'll give you some of the background, why spear phishing, all that kind of stuff.
What I loved is this actually like the episode you watched, maybe you watched the episode on the 1st of the month. This is an opportunity to validate, did you actually retain your skills? So the scenario in the simulation is backing up literally what you learned, whether it's 10 minutes before or 10 days after, right? That's all kinds of kind of reinforcement here. Don't get me wrong. We know some of you out there are like, I want micro episodes. I want 1 or 2 minutes. And what we've had to ask ourselves here at Huntress is like, do we give you a foot gun or not? Like we are going to handle some of you who like don't want to do a simulation. But we're learning if you actually want to lower your risk and not check a box, this is what it takes of actually being able to double down and truly learn your lesson here. So,
So you get, just like the other simulation, you get 5 minutes. And so you can start the mission here and you're going to get some stuff and it'll ask you like, okay, who do you want to phish? In mine, I chose Matt Z. I figured let's go for the hard one. And again, it gives you some, okay, here's some back and forth, here's what you should think. And then it gives you some choices, right? And it's saying like, hey, what should your attack scenario be? And based on what you've seen there, then you're supposed to choose one. And when you choose one, you can get it right, you can get it wrong. Sometimes it will tell you like, hey, this was not the one you should have chosen, or that was a good choice for these reasons. So if you just want to choose one.
Yeah, this is totally not Mark Zuckerberg, is it? I'm pretty sure that's definitely not him. All right, so it says he loves NFTs. We're gonna go with it. We're gonna say, hey, let's collaborate on an NFT here. And what's funny is his name is actually Matt. So the idea of the other one's talking about like Roland ski trip doesn't make any sense.
Right, exactly.
So if you can't tell, the idea is actually trying to teach the end user of like, what would a hacker do on the other end? You can't send an email that makes no darn sense. It's not going to resonate. But notice this is from the offensive point of view. We're trying to actually teach non-technical end users.
Right.
Them not having to compose an email. They don't have to compose their own fish.
Right. And they only have a few choices, right? It's not like you had to make it up. So then again, it's like, hey, what's the subject line? And it will tell you like, hey, this is your first thing. You need to get them interested. You want to drive some urgency. So you can just choose one.
I'm going to pretend I'm a sales guy, because as a sales guy that doesn't do a ton of marketing, all I want is the money. Click fast.
There you
That's
go.
probably not going to work. I won't lie. It's probably going to trigger spam or something.
Yeah,
but I want to show a fail case.
Yeah,
If you're cool with that.
For sure.
So here we go. We've got the subject line plugged in. You just want an NFT drop. Click fast. It just screams.
And it tells you right here, you know, hey, that was an average choice, and here's why. Right. So again, it's helping you understand what it could look like. And I think most people would think the same reasoning you just thought, which was like, oh, this seems super sus. This subject line is dumb. You know, getting users to really understand that, like, hey, there's going to be some really obvious phishing emails, and then there's going to be some not so obvious phishing emails.
So I'll demonstrate, you know, this was supposed to be an NFT collaboration offer. So you want an NFT drop probably doesn't make sense for what I was supposed to be doing. I probably just chose the wrong answer.
Right.
But keeping it going, let's try to be from Open Lake, which is this fake NFT company.
Yep.
And notice it's just populating right away. Like, what do you want to do? Who's your sender name? All the different fields an actual criminal has to fill out. Do you have a favorite here you want to do here, or anything that looks maybe?
I don't know. You could just choose one. I would say choose maybe like.
If I was doing this, I would probably be faking from the partnership team.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way I would have done it if I didn't dork up the first line. And keeping it there, partnerships, if I'm coming from it with the display name. All right, let's do it.
And the nice part is, and I think if we just choose some different ones, we can show them, you know, it'll kind of give you a grading for each of the things you've chosen at the end. So.
All right. So we all know everybody's using AI these days.
Yeah.
LLMs are everything, it seems like. Question mark, question mark. But we've got our own AI bot here. So let's jump in, because threat actors these days, right? They're not writing as many as their own emails.
Yep.
So what's beautiful is notice how this is actually layering other lessons in a very non-technical way. So it gives me a chance to preview each of these actual emails. Like, hey, do you want to go with a basic email that says, hey, Matt, we're launching this. Here's the drop details. Do you want to maybe go with an exclusive offer to collaborate? That's kind of sexy, but it doesn't really feel overly tailored. Looks like the marketing team sent this with like HubSpot. And then what do we got down here? Really annoying. Collaborate. You want to go with option one? What do you want?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with option one.
Yeah.
All right. So somewhere in the middle, and notice we've kind of got most of our email. The last thing it says is, let's go make sure that we have different landing pages. So when they do click this spot here, what type of web page are they going to get? Are they going to get a web page that looks like just sign in, right? That's typical of people start trying to do your M365 credential theft. Uh-oh, it's angry at me.
No, you ran it. You're almost out of time.
You know what? I'm going to decline. I think I can do this.
I think you're pretty close to the end.
I'm good. I'm pretty close to the end. I'm feeling good. I don't need more time. I want my points.
Yep.
All right. Seed phrase.
That doesn't really line up, right?
Open Lake portal. If I'm just asking, he doesn't even have a login. That doesn't even make sense. I'm going to go with the first one. I'm going to hit him with the fake login and see if I can steal some credits.
I think that's it.
And just like this, we've just taught somebody with very little skills, right? Hey, let's try to get them in the morning on Tuesday mid-morning. And voila, we've just simulated environment teaching somebody from the hacker's point of view of how this goes. And even though we were kind of weak sauce, notice I shouldn't have done that, but at least it demonstrates, hey, look, my very first go at this was weak. My subject line felt like it was too loud, too obviously fake. It reads like a scam. You're a weak sauce hacker is what they said.
Yeah.
It seems like I still got an invite. I think maybe the all-seeing 3 should double check that. I thought they were elite grannies. Maybe they're mid. But either way, I get my rewards, but hopefully you all see that. So I'm super curious, just to do a typical product lab feedback as we're getting ready to run out of time. What do you all think? We've showed you simulations before. Would you guys even turn this feature on? I know some environments, they're wanting one video is already enough. They don't want to turn on the simulation. So we've got you in mind there. Do you think this will actually help you reduce some of your incidents? I'm curious from those of you. I'm seeing some heart emojis, but I'm hoping to get maybe some dissent.
So Steven suggested that the attacker who signed up for Huntress was really just trying to get into the simulation so that he could learn.
Oh, I get it. We're now like we're a training company too, not just security awareness training, but
Right.
for black hats. Got it.
Right.
Shady hackers.
Ben was asking if we're seeing significant adoption by the end users of like completing these sims and anything that like we're getting from there. I don't have any of those numbers.
We should bring our receipts. They did a
But yeah.
presentation here yesterday that showed we are getting sometimes that people say, hey, it feels a little complex at times. That's something that's fixable. What's really exciting is when we, kind of word map to the most common words: fun, exciting, informative, eye-opening. Those are some of the early feedback we've got from our very first simulation. But to be very frank, each simulation might be landed differently. So expect our actual simulations to iterate. This is 1.0, 1.2, 2.0. We plan to do quite a bit of actual changing. Like, this is a live living product.
Yeah.
And it should update as things change. So
yeah, we got some good feedback here. D said their users have been super positive on it.
Is that D or DD? I don't believe that, chat. One second. That's sketch there. Yeah. All right, looking good. So
Cool.
It seems like, for the most part, if you do run into like really angry dissent, like as good as it is to hear positive feedback,
yeah,
like please let us know. It is software, you can change it,
right?
But we really want to make sure this lands with most. What's exciting is we're starting to get enough data that is suggesting we are truly curbing some behaviors. Still probably too early to say that for sure, right? The signal is not quite statistically significant yet, but I hope that gives you an idea of where we're going. On that note, Chris,
all right, what do
we got one last mailbag question and some free stuff to give away in a handful of minutes. Do we want to take this, maybe kind of just wing it? What I'll do is I'll go back into Zoom, I'll do some screen share, and then we'll give away some gifts. And what's exciting is I wonder if we've got some pretty cool exclusive Summer Summit gifts. So maybe we give some like employee only swag to people who joined us live. That sounds pretty good. Like a
special edition. I like it.
All right, so going back into the good old fashioned slides, you'll take a look and, we've set ourselves up with a question that we know many of you are asking, and we just wanted to double down. So to not, ever infringe on anybody's trademarks, we don't do that here at Huntress ever. Nope. We pretended that we were a vendor that said, yo, any chance you're planning on selling some antivirus? If not, we can hook you up with the best OEM licensed software from Mega Phelan. And it turns out, this is a question a lot of you have asked. Will you go OEM license somebody's antivirus? And to be very frank on our end, there's 81 antiviruses out there. The desire for us to write, number 82, it's just not there. There's just a lot of that cat and mouse. And we've seen the hard data. We know, generally speaking, if you are using Defender for Endpoint, if you're using SentinelOne or CrowdStrike, you're running a solid next generation antivirus. It's the management of those that are actually setting them apart. And to be very frank, with those top three, if you're running in that category, I think you're pretty okay. You do need to consider what you're using for EDR, because some things, like we run into a lot of partners that are like, I didn't realize SentinelOne Control is not actually SentinelOne Complete that has the EDR. That's some of the stuff we run into. But no, we're not looking to dive in. With that said, Chris has already started R&D. We're not ready to share it yet, but we are going to start moving more into the prevention side. A couple episodes ago, we told you about how we want to shift left. And part of that shifting left is we're starting to get more aggressive on zero trust, zero-ish trust. When do we deny and block things? But even considering things like some certain M&As. Looked at a company recently that's doing in-memory prevention. Like when hackers are injecting processes, could we sometimes actually take full activity, not on all antivirus tradecraft, but certain antivirus tradecraft that we actually see that there is room to provide. And what's beautiful about this is this will probably grow into a new separate product, the endpoint security, security posture management. So
yeah. I mean, it's very much like the same approach that we've taken where, we've always expected that none of these technologies is perfect, right?
Yep.
EDR is not perfect. ITDR is not perfect. It is just entirely unrealistic to believe that you are going to get to perfect, especially when it comes to zero trust. I've talked with a lot of people who have tried to deploy these application policies, have tried to get to zero trust. The consistent feedback that I've gotten is that they got very close, but they could never get all the way there. And what ends up happening then is they kind of abandon it. They say, well, we could never get to zero trust. So we're just going to move on. We're going to do something else. Right?
And I'm surprised, even with ThreatLocker, who's made it pretty good, like they've made it more accessible. They've made the management a bit better.
Yeah.
We're learning that there's got to be some sort of in-between version of zero trust that is still permissive enough to allow people to be more productive However, the reality that EDR is still going to have to very much do work. So the idea behind it is no, we're pretty much feet in the ground. We'll reserve the right to change it, but no antivirus for Huntress is coming. However, you are going to see a lot more preventive technology between here and 2026 that will start rolling out. So if you all, especially as product lab, regulars, I see quite a few of you here on Chris's chat. This is where, if you want to jump in, especially if you're already running, or, even cases, we'll probably start with this stuff in like public, private alpha, and give you access to this stuff well in advance for free. And then we'll figure out the billing later. That tends to be the way that we work.
It allows us to learn, right? Like we don't know what we don't know, especially when it comes to rolling it out. And I want to learn that early in the process, so we have the opportunity to pivot, to change things, to build stuff out. I don't want to get to the point where we think it's done, we're about to, sell it and charge people for it, and then we're learning stuff for the first time. That's not good for us. That's not good for anybody. So we always try to get it out there super early.
Yep. And we're big fans of being community, somewhat vendor supportive, right? Not just the idea of we support you as partners and customers, but if you choose to run something like CrowdStrike as your antivirus, our SIM will continue to stay kind of product agnostic. It has to be a standalone SIM, one that you can use our SIM on its own. So notice like our SIM having the ability, like we are actively working and finding that even though we might have a competitive product, we actually think what's best for the community is allowing folks to be able to get their data in the place that matters at a predictable cost. So you're going to see that type of support. Not only are Huntress leaning in to better fix some of these gaps where we think they exist, but also still handling pretty much any vendor you decide to use on that end that meets kind of the threshold of, let's call it quality. There's certain vendors we probably will never is a strong word, but I can say probably as long as Chris and I are here, we're not going to be integrating them into some of our data. We'll probably be pushing you towards a better vendor, even if it's not us.
Yep.
Chris, I'm not going to go in here. We are about at the point of a wrap. With that said, I want to bust some chat out, want to figure out where we're going.
Yeah.
What do we have for prizes today? So if those of you don't know, we give out swag at the end of every single one of our product labs. Drives you to be able to, kind of show back up. It also helps. We had over 10 questions that have jumped in. So we're going to use this as a moment to be able to not only give out swag, but to answer some of the questions you all asked. So I personally have some bias towards D. I think it's DD under the hood.
Yeah.
I think if you reach out D to swag@huntress.com, we're going to send you some of our exclusive Huntress swag.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that's teammates only that we did here.
Yeah. We got like a Huntress hat. We got a nice like Patagonia crossbody.
Yeah, that was pretty dope.
And a t-shirt. So
nice. What about you? You got somebody that you want?
There's
some good questions in here.
I was going to nominate Bruce No.
Bruce, have you won before? Hook us up. Oh, D, you just got lucky with a good name.
So somebody asked SIM for Azure. Any chance we'll get it? I think we just released this into beta. So we've set this up. We've been able to work with a couple of partners, collect the logs from it. So if you're on Azure and you want to be able to collect those logs, definitely hit us up. And
we've got the SIM team in the audience. Did we just release this in beta? Somebody confirm for me? Sounds like it's in beta. Again, that's another one. Hit your account manager up. So if you've got this, and if you're don't have an account manager, smash that, start a free trial, and then hit your account manager up. See what I did there?
Yeah. Like and subscribe.
Oh, gosh. So all kinds of ridiculous questions. Will Chris or Kyle show us their CWalk? I do have some feet game, but I don't think I have enough stage here. That's my nice way of saying no. With that said, we are here in Miami, and I heard Saturday night is a Coldplay concert, and Todd, my CRO, he was going to show me dance moves at the Coldplay. Okay. All right. We're not doing this. We're not doing this.
Yes.
All right.
Does Huntress have a web page or newsletter that will keep us updated on all the new and ongoing CVEs, zero-day threats?
I think we have too many newsletters at Huntress right now. I think the other day we just heard we don't actually know how many newsletters we have. We're working on this.
I don't
we have one for threat intel.
I don't know that we have like a threat intel one. I know we put that out like once a year, right? Like the adversary tactics
sometimes it's quarterly
together, but
Greg Harlan, I know internally we have the adversary tactics newsletter. That doesn't go external, does it? It does? All right. Well, if you guys are in chat or you want to like yell loud enough, you want to tell us how we can share that resource. I thought we only kept that internal. So, I mean, that's a dope resource. All right, for those of you who didn't hear, it sounds like it was shared through LinkedIn last month, and we're gonna like work our way of being able to do this. I'll come back next month ready to share. Again,
Check LinkedIn.
Yeah, you saw, I legit thought this was a private only version, so.
Let's see. Will we ever see Sassy? What's your thoughts on Sassy?
You know, I am a bit sassy.
You
but,
are.
No, to be very frank, I'm not going to call some technology bullshit. I think there is benefits of having things that are interconnected, but like we're a team of 600 of us that operate in 598 different locations. Ask us about our SASE solution. It doesn't exist. And I'm not saying that it isn't solving a problem. I just think there are much bigger problems to solve first, second, third, fourth, fifth.
Yeah.
So that's my long way of saying I just don't see us jumping into SASE. It's not that I don't believe in it. I actually think there is real value at times. But in 2025, there is no like hardened perimeter or virtual perimeter. I think in many ways, being very distributed helps limit some of your attack surface. Like try laterally moving through 600 Huntress offices. Like good fucking luck moving through the laptops. You almost have to move through like the identity side, and that's where threat actors are going. So my point behind it is, in some ways, being very distributed or supporting that, since people are on the go anyways. I get it if you have an old on-prem office where people VPN in and that's the requirements, or maybe it's, let's be real, there's some places that it's just flat out like, it might not be a requirement in the sense of like there's actually compliance, but maybe it's like a flow down. We sometimes see this with big enterprise vendors that mid-size and small businesses that support them are required to join this. But if you notice, like there's way bigger fish to fry. So I personally don't see that in 26. 27 could be different, but there's just so many other things that we're going to do. I don't see SASE coming. Do you?
No.
Okay.
So there's a couple of them that we can just fly through here. Is
training in multiple languages?
Yes, it is.
Oui.
No. Si, senor.
That was some bad Spanglish and yeah, French. And I think it's the actual episodes is it subtitles?
Yes.
Overall subtitles?
Yeah. So we use like Amazon has like a service that will do translations. So we use that.
So is that answered like yes, light? Because even the simulations, I think, are only English, right?
I think they are still. I mean, they're still new, so we're still working on them. We didn't want to put in a ton of time to like make it all perfect before we knew if anybody actually cared or liked it. So we're working on it.
Can you tell us the languages though you prefer? That would be really good feedback to get in here. Like tell us, can you scroll in your chat since I can't see it all?
Yeah, like what are we missing? Oh yeah, good. Oh, there's 23 new messages.
Yeah,
my bad.
We're sucking. SSH forwarding to SASE.
A Huntress cruise. You know, I brought this up the other day. I like joked. I was like, oh yeah, we should do like a Huntress cruise for like the Huntress thing. And people said that was a really bad idea.
Was it? Like, are you thinking
they thought it was gonna be an episode of Love Boat?
Okay, that's a little, I could see us all getting stranded. I mean, we'd find a way. I immediately went to Somalia pirates, but I don't know geography very well, clearly. Like, that's probably not the coast of Miami. You don't run into much pirates from Somalia.
I don't think so. I'm the captain now.
Oh, you are not. All right, keeping it going. Going back to integration talk. Any plans for Ninja One integration for EDR, ticketing scenarios? Do we not send tickets to Ninja One? I know they've added some certain things. They were RMM first. I know we do deployment.
Yeah, they have like a PSA component.
You should get on that. Ninja is obviously a great company. They're fairly modern. People are moving over there.
Yeah.
I think, Chris, we need to get on that. I'm a little surprised that, again, I know Ninja's only added this in the last 18 months?
Yeah.
It's fairly new. Might even be newer than that.
Yeah, I think we just probably, I don't think we have access to Ninja as far as like NFR. So we probably need to get that so we can build it out.
I'll go call Sal.
But yeah, there's some other stuff in here, but we're a little over, so we should probably wrap it up. So yeah.
Can we hit Yankee's question last? Because you're the sim master. Obviously, you've passed the ropes over to Nate and that team. But they asked the sim team, hey, is there any question or plans or any ideas to introduce sim allowing us to do our own configuration of alerts?
Oh yeah, that we just shipped that. I think it's in beta.
Is it really?
Yeah. So we built it on a couple of different pieces. So the initial one,
it is. It's similar.
Yeah. So the initial piece was like, can you write a query and save it? The second piece was, can you run that on a schedule? And then the third piece was, can you be notified about that? So
Bruce had a question about recurring stuff too. For the team, would you want us to do next product lab? Would you want us to show if this really is in beta? maybe some of the first versions of our ability to do it sounds like some basic, hey, search and alert, or it doesn't sound like it's as heavy as if this, then that type stuff, but
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is, okay, Bruce
We
is saying,
will
yeah.
definitely get to that. But I think there's 500 people here who would like to go to the bathroom probably.
All right,
So-
on that side of that, or on that note, we're 1 hour, 8 minutes
Yeah.
into Product Lab. Thank you for joining us for our very first live edition. Can't thank you enough. The feedback you give truly empowers us. This is what it looks
Yep.
like to have a product-led organization. So, yeah.
There you go. Cool.
So hats off and kudos to those of you who won swag. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, they're not here against their will. In fact, we're gonna have to kick them out and send them home.
Yeah, this is a deep fake actual Huntress. We're lying. It's still Chris and I using
Yeah.
AI. So John in the back. All right, we're out of here. Thank
All right.
you.
We'll see
Bye,
you next
everyone.
time.